Hi guys, good evening. Welcome to the WEBSTER Report. Following up a video that I did about gas, water and electric being free, technically not right, already paid for, but it's about bouncing the bucks. Won't go into that in this video. This is the spin-off onto what I discovered about mortgages and banking whilst trying to fight in the court system against them. There's things that you discover as you go down this road, and there's people rightly point out, well, where's the win? Why have you not done this? You're up against everything. These people are leeching off every man and woman in this system. You you fund everything that these people do, and you do it willingly through consent. So let's just try and have a simple look at how I, in my opinion, believe the banking system treats you and works against you. But you'll find out that it's a lot. You have a lot to do with it. You have a lot of consent. So we start off on life, don't we? We've had all our teachings about our parents, work hard, pay your bills. You've got to find somebody you want to fall in love with and get married. Okay. So we're talking about getting married. What's the thing that you do when you're talking about getting married? You're talking about getting a house, aren't you? So we start talking about and looking about housing. We start thinking about what rooms we're going to use and what decorations and all this, and we're getting all carried away. But we still haven't got a house, and we have to go to this enigma called a bank. So we go in there, and 99.9% of us believe that they're going to do something in order for us to get a house, which they are, but we believe they're going to actually lend us money, and that isn't the case. You're going to agree to a mortgage. Now we can go on about death pledges, blah blah blah, but it's a mortgage agreement. It's a credit agreement, and there you have it. Look at that smile. Come into my parlour, said the spider to the fly. She's going to help you. She's going to help you really well. So you're offered to sign something and date it so that they can check whether they can facilitate a mortgage for you or not. As soon as you sign that, they're out the office. The chair is still spinning while you wait your fate to see if you can actually get a house. Most of the time they come back with this great news that they can give you this mortgage. They can lend you. That's what they say, isn't it? And they present this mortgage agreement, not a contract. Get away from mortgage contracts. You don't sign contracts, you sign agreements. So this mortgage agreement is basically what you're going to agree to. So these are their terms and conditions. So let's call it £100,000. So you're going to agree to pay so much a month plus interest back to the creditor so you can get your house. And you think, oh, that's a nice deal. Thank you so much, bank, for lending me that money. I will endeavour to pay you back. But that isn't what's happening. In the banking system, in a debt-based economy, the bank is bankrupt. It can't lend you anything, but it can facilitate credit agreements between a debtor and a creditor. That's what this agreement is. It's an agreement between a debtor and a creditor. You are both parties. You are both parties to this agreement and the terms and conditions. So the debtor, you, is going to borrow from the creditor, you, but the bank is going to broker that agreement by facilitating the credit. So they're going to turn your worth into cash for, let's say, call it 400 quid plus VAT. But they don't take that payment for the services. They tag that onto the end of your 25-year mortgage agreement. But don't forget, you've agreed, you've signed. And that's why if when if and when people pay off the mortgages, there's a big lump sum at the end of it. Well, that's the £400 plus VAT plus interest for 25 years you haven't paid them for. So that's the service plan. But the problem is, when we get to this part, if you're honest, how many people have read the terms and conditions? In family and friends and colleagues, I haven't met one. That's what happens when they start talking about terms and conditions. You just want to sign. And that's what they want you to do as well. That's why there's about 17 pages of very, very small writing. But in that writing, there's a lot that you should know about, but shh, the bank's not going to tell you. The bank is not going to tell you what are in those terms and conditions. They're trustees to this agreement. So let me be the bank. I'm now facilitating a credit agreement between a debtor and a creditor, and I'm the trustee to that. I have obligations as trustee. I have an obligation to the creditor in case the debtor defaults. The creditor needs paying back. So under the European Parliamentary Directives of 2006, round about section 88 to 120, they talk about third-party liability insurance. So that if the debtor defaults, paying themselves back, there is an insurance policy that as a trustee, and a good trustee I am, I trigger that insurance policy. That's what I'm meant to do. But you don't know that because this is all you're interested in. You've got your house, you've got your keys, you're already planning on where you're going to put things in your house. You're not interested in the mortgage policy insurance, not house insurance, mortgage policy insurance. As the trustee, I must take that out. If I don't take that out, I'm in breach of trust. That's how simple that is. So I must take it out, and I do take it out as the bank. You're in your house. Life's good. You're working hard. You're paying those bills. You're breaking even with maybe a little bit more. And you think you're winning. As you see in the previous video, that's not quite how it is. You were taught how to lose in this system. So what could possibly go wrong? Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear. Just coincides with shutdowns of businesses, big holes in economies, talking about big resets, cashless societies. Talking about that 10 years ago, never happened though, would it? And yet within 2 years, this is where we're at. So your happiness is now being drained. You've been laid off. You don't know what you're going to do. You sit down with the missus and you start going through your bills. You don't know what to do. The bank does. Oh dear, you've defaulted 3 times. Now, what am I going to do? Well, the bank, as a trustee, will trigger the insurance claimant form. So your £100,000 is now paid off in full. Your mortgage is paid off in full. But you signed an agreement. It's all paid, but you signed an agreement. Terms and conditions. Deed said that you would pay so much a month plus interest, but it also stated that you would forfeit the property in order to pay back the creditor. So you will give the house up for sale to pay you back. So the debtor you will allow me to sell the house to pay you back into your credit account that you don't know exists at the Treasury. Do you not get the feeling that there's things been left out in your education in life? Do you get the feeling that you've been taught just the right amount of things to keep you happy, to keep you entertained? That's life. Just remember, consent, forfeited this. You've decided that you don't want to use the insurance that you don't know about. You don't want to use it. You want to forfeit the property. But if I told you, well, I paid it off, it's yours. I'm the trustee. I paid it off with the insurance. How happy would you be? Well, you don't know about it. So you two and your family go like this with your thumb up, happy because you tried, and it's just hard luck. It's just hard luck how it's happened. You know, there's good people in there. They tried to help you. They tried to make your payment plans, blah, blah, blah. All the liability, all of it was on you. The bank has no liability. There's no dog in the fight for the bank. From lending you nothing, they not only take a property, but they take the insurance. You still own £400 plus VAT, which could make you bankrupt, just like the bank. But the bank, as we discussed in the previous video, even though they're bankrupt, they just write things on paper. Are you confused? The credit application has been approved. Everything has been approved for the debtor and the creditor. The creditor is going to lend the debtor. You are both parties. He who lends, he who takes, both the same parties. I, as the bank, as trustees, will facilitate it, but all the liability is on you and not the bank. And just to cover that, in case I get caught, I take out insurance. That's in case I get caught. But nobody's reading. If there's no insurance, it's a breach of trust. They're done. So if you ask them about the insurance policy for a copy and they say they haven't got one, they're in breach. If they say they've got one, they should give you a copy. Once you've got that copy, if anything goes into default, on presentation of that insurance policy, the bank should, which the terms and conditions are subject to change, the bank should listen to your instruction and state, well, I want to change that now. The insurance policy has been paid off. The creditor has been credited. So there's no loss, no harm. I can walk away owning the title to my property. Not the property, but the title. But you don't know that. Shh, we're not going to tell you. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. It's time. You've got to grow up, people. You've got to be humble enough to accept that you might have been sold a pig. You know, maybe that line that you heard from your parents, that's life. Maybe it's not quite that. Maybe the people who've got control of your information tell you what they want you to know. Because all what this does is it cuts families up, it dissects families. Well, if you want to expand into a bigger agenda, that's what it's about. They don't want families who are together, who do things together, who are wholesome. They want a mess so that they can apply legislation on useful idiots. Just off on a tangent, you can see what's happening with the Insulate Britain crowd, funded and organised. They'll go to court, they'll have legislation passed, and that legislation will be so vague it can be applied to anybody in any situation. And that's where you get the dictatorship and tyranny coming in. And if you can't see that that's what's happening, particularly Australia, well, maybe Love Island's on, I don't know. But as I've known too well in people personally, this has been their final resort for a house that's paid off, for a family that can't afford to pay bills. It's time to grow up and start thinking. All this has been agreed to. Your house, your family, all being turned upside down. You've agreed to it. Now, we can all say it's fraud, which it is. But they can point to legislation. What are you going to do? Well, I didn't know about that. Ignorance of the law. There's a lot of fraud going on in these systems. The council tax is going to be the next one. And I can't wait to hear the people start telling me how council tax pays for your police and your ambulance and your fire. What a lot of rubbish. All funded separately, all funded by your taxes, all sat on by your local council, who are corrupt to the core, along with the banking system and the judiciary system. There are good people still in those systems, but not in positions that can do anything. You've got to start waking up to look at this stuff, because things are going to move quick. This is what they're basically doing. But it's ignorance of the law, because they put it in the terms and conditions. The fact you don't read them or you don't understand them, it's not their fault. They try and cover every base. Maybe if you put them in a corner and go, oh, sorry you got us, we'll give you a bit. Shh, be quiet. Others, they just phone armed police on. These are the gatekeepers. These are the gatekeepers. If you notice that word at the end there, service, anytime that you are summoned to a court by Her Majesty's Courts and Tribunal Service, you are invited to their place of business to discuss business. If you don't go, they presume that you're going, you consent anyway. If you turn up, they presume that you consent because you turned up. So you can't get away from it. But the factor is, when you turn up and say, I don't wish to have your service, this is a civil matter, they insist that you have their service. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never walked past B&Q and their managers come running out, dragged me in to their shop and pointed at hammers and nails and said, buy some. I choose whether to go into B&Q or not. But you don't with this. Interesting. Because normally what we're taught is we have to go and see a person who gets a license from these people to operate in this system. And they won't go against this system because they'll have the license took off them. So all of this starts to knit and stitch in very, very well, especially to when you're dealing with ignorant masses who just work. And now we've got we're at a point where people aren't working. People are having universal credit cancelled, where they don't know what they're going to do. Well, if they collapse the economy, then everybody's dependent, and you'll do as you're told. It's not hard. It's happened many, many, many times in history. The fact you think it won't happen now, do you know how many people in history have thought that at that time? This is the legal way that they steal property. And it's your fault. It's our fault. We're ignorant. We don't know how this works. We don't bother going looking. We're happy with that's life. It can't be that way. It can't just be, well, that's it, we're happy with life. You've got to ask questions, but legislation's being passed now that is stopping people asking questions. Facebook whistleblowers come out blowing whistles to look at more lockdown on information because of how Facebook have treated children. So they've virtually thrown parts of themselves under the bus so that more legislation can get passed. Australia are banning people using social media. 8 hours it was down for the other day. Nobody's understanding how what a predicament we're actually in. I'm lost. I'm actually lost for words. But we've got to again, I'll put in these comments here. You've got to be humble enough to accept that where you've got your information from throughout your life could be tainted. My mum taught me to work hard, pay my bills in a debt-based economy. You cannot do that. And the fact she registered me to be part of this debt, I have benefits and privileges that I need to claim, but I'm not taught how to do that. Again, birth certificate, rabbit holes, but there's something there that is registered for our part in this debt-based economy, where banks don't have any wealth, but they can facilitate credit agreements, but they're stealing equity, they're stealing real property, real wealth, and leaving you with all the debt. And as in the previous video I stated, one fella I spoke to, he went to Eton. I said, "You're taught the bills of exchange up by the age of 13. And his response was, "Of course, Paul. How would we steal all the equity and leave you with all the debt?" Time to wake up, people. Please. Take care. God bless.